Hi everyone, I'm Courtney Sale, the Nancy L. Donahue Artistic Director, and I am thrilled and excited to spend time with a new colleague, Lila Rose Kaplan, who MRT audiences know and remember from Home of the Brave and Villain Supper Club a couple seasons ago. Lila Rose, thank you for spending time with us.
It's a wonderful time to meet new people on Zoom. This is what I'm learning.
I've been talking, as you know, at MRT's mission, at the heart of our mission is new works. And I've been talking to writers in the field about their process and how they put a play together. And we're kind of picking at the mythology that a writer huddles away and poof, out comes a play. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your own process, the rhythm that you create when you're making work, and how people intersect that, and maybe some of your threshold moments in a process.
Totally. I mean, I will say that every play is kind of its own child or its own beast. So there have been different evolutions, but I don't know. I love playwriting so much because it really feeds like two different parts of me. And I discovered playwriting in high school. I went to a high school that had a wonderful performing arts program, and we got to write plays, and a few of them got produced. And I just had this moment standing in the back of the theater watching my first play. It was called Busy Signal, and it was about a couple that only believed in human communication and wouldn't pick up the phone. So all these people had to like come to their house, and it holds up. It's still kind of funny, but I remember watching it and just thinking like, oh, this is like my Emily Dickinson self who wants to be up in the attic writing poems, and my like actress, director, performer self who wants nothing more than to be in a room with other people. It's like the place where they both get to live. And I just had this image of like Emily Dickinson coming downstairs and getting to sit at a table with all these people and make something. And I feel like that's where I live as an artist, is that kind of doing those two different dances. So when I started play, which I'm actually doing right now with a new piece, it's sort of more of a like internal generation time, but I still sort of talk about the idea with different trusted people. I call them my midnight dramaturgs. And then I love to write just like a really fast, messy, rough draft, like just to get something out. I'm actually helping to run a write a play in a month challenge at the Huntington Theatre next month to kind of, we're all just gonna write first drafts, and something we don't have to cancel right now because we can still do. Yeah. And then after that, for me, it's a dance of like, people know people, people know people. Like, I love people. I do better with people. And so to know there's a deadline, to know, oh, I have to have this, first draft done for the end of May so we can read it, gives me that sense of like, oh, there's going to be a community, there are going to be multiple voices. The ritual here that I love of people coming together to tell and receive a story will happen. And I hear it and I'm like, oh, all these good questions. I need to go back into my cave, back into my attic. So I come in and out a lot. I really love, something I did at MRT actually was, I do readings that were 2 weeks apart when I was working on something. So we do a reading, I'd hear it, this before we go into production, and then 2 weeks later we'd hear it again. So it's a way to kind of like really include the audience. Because to me, what's so exciting about theater is that like your final scene partner is the audience, and the final people you're doing the play with are the audience. And no matter how wonderful TV and movies get, and they are pretty wonderful, like I still always miss that sense of like, watching the lady next to you laugh so hard that you keep laughing. And so yeah, I like to go back and forth. I learn a lot from audiences. I love kind of getting feedback. I don't need suggestions always. What I really love is hearing what people heard. Sometimes you end up with like some of the story still trapped in your head, and I think like it's really good to be like, can you just tell me the story of what you just heard, and it kind of keeps the storytelling loop going. So I had a lot of fun with MRT audiences and readings doing some of that and learning where the play was and what was still needed to come out. And I think each play is different, but it's, especially in the comedies, like you can't really know what's there until you hear people laughing. And I just had this wonderful experience. I had my first show at the Huntington this winter, and we had like 14 previews, and there was something about having so much time to tweak the comedy that I just was so in love with the audience. It's like, oh, you're teaching me like where these laughs live, and if we take out 2 words here, then suddenly it's a joke, and if we don't, it's sort of a like almost joke, So yeah, I think each play is different, but there is something about coming in and out relationship with the room of people that's really helpful to me.
I've been asking folks this question, and I like where it kind of sends us, because it can go a couple places. But in the early part, when you sit down and you are alone, with your blank page, do you know what you're capable of?
What a great question. Do I know what I'm capable of? I love it when I end up surprising myself. So I think I like to sort of launch myself into the unknown. I mean, I've written for long enough now that I write awesome women, I write complex relationships, I write really funny moments, I wrote poetry. I kind of have a toolbox, that is my thing. But I love the parts I don't know. I love what I find along the way, or sometimes there'll be something that's a placeholder for a while. In Home of the Brave, they all did the chicken dance at the end. And it was never that's never what it was going to be. There was just something there, and we just kept the chicken dance. Everyone was like, really? And I was like, I don't know. And at the end we realized that she was a ninja, and it set up, the chicken dance went away, and this whole other, there were people under the stage with GoPros helping her. The whole thing became this awesome action sequence at the end of Home of the Brave. And it taught me to hold on to things that don't quite work, but are the right size,
Mm-hmm.
Everyone doing the chicken dance is a large thing, and stuff. But, and it wasn't the right thing, but it was kind of the right size. And so I think, people ask me sometimes if I outline or not, which is a different, maybe less interesting version of your question. And I like to think I draw maps, and I follow them as long as I can. And then I go back often and I'll remap based on what I have and be like, oh, actually, this is what this is now. And so I kind of come in and out, and it's interesting to character and language and world come to me very easily, and plot is my thing. I always have to go back and kind of find and refine. And there's something to not exactly knowing the story, but knowing the world and the people pretty well. That's exciting to me, because then it's I often feel I have this commedia troupe in my head, and we just kind of get into our van, see where we're going. And there are shapes that stories take, so I think you start to understand once you meet the characters well enough that you know what matters to them, you can see sort of the sweep of where it's going to go. But I don't think I always know what I'm capable of, and that's exciting. That keeps it interesting.
Yeah. In your experience of developing plays all over the country, what are things that you wish you could cast a spell and everybody would have X?
I think dramaturgs are an amazing thing, because they really give the playwright a coach, an ally, a therapist, a best friend. And especially as you're moving into tech on a production, to have someone that is still kind of at your side, because there's this moment, you must know this as a director, where you kind of have to let go of your hands as playwright and director to go into tech. And it's but wait, we were married and now you're seeing all this other designers, and what's happening? But I think a dramaturg is an amazing thing. And I'm learning there's a real power to a dramaturg that knows many of your plays. I've been really lucky to work with Charles Hogland a lot at the Huntington, and there's something about coming back to that relationship again and again that is so comforting, because it's not as a player, you often have to teach the particular play and also your voice and the strengths of your voice and your weaknesses, and to have a shorthand and a comfort level has been great. I also think I love processes where it's one day on, one day off, which maybe is my people know people dance or sped up.
Yeah.
Adrenaline of I got to see all these people, and now I have all these notes, and not tomorrow, but the day after, I need to bring more stuff in. And there's something about the paper is due the next day college energy that feeds a certain workshop process for me really well. And and when I get to design my own processes, I often kind of create that, whether it's every other day or before every 2 weeks, something where there's still something anchoring you to earth, and then you're going to come back and show this again.
because I want to talk about audiences for a little bit. And like if we had to write recruitment language for new play audiences, you know, what are the things that you would describe to recruit them in? Like what's the perfect new play audience?
I think we're looking for like people with a sense of adventure, people who loved things as a kid, like almost anything, but just that kind of intense love, you know, like I think so many of us grow up and think we're not artists or forget we were. You know, I have a 4-year-old, now she's 5. I have a 5-year-old, and yeah, she can do anything. She can draw, she can puzzle, she can, you know, let's do a puzzle. I'm so good at puzzles, you know, this sort of like great arrogance of a 5-year-old girl. It makes me sad. I think girls lose that around 9. But I think there's something to that, like, desire for imagination that that is so exciting, because we're all going to walk in and imagine something together, you know. And I think like recruiting people that maybe don't think of themselves as theater people or art people, but just like love comic books or love boating or love something enough to like bring that amount of love into the room is like, I think what we need. And like, I don't know, in my experience with the MRT audience, like the number of people who would find me in the lobby afterwards and just tell me their stories that like the play had brought out of them with that, because that's all we want, is to kind of keep telling each other stories. And I feel like we tell stories to like get better at being human, right? And so the more we can feed each other things, the more we can like keep getting better at all of this. And like, you know, one thing I keep thinking right now is that we're living through something no one's experienced before, you know, and I find myself like listening to all this music I loved in high school and college. Like there's some part of me that's going back to the stories or music I love to kind of ground myself. And I think like, I don't know, looking for audience members that want to try on experiences that are different than theirs, but also know their experience matters.
This is the last question. You know, we are in a moment that is about, it's a moment of instinct. It's a moment of like putting us in the present in a really intense way. And I just would love if you would share just like what are things that are feeding your moment. What are things that are feeding your moment?
I think the fact that wonderful things can still happen has been a nice surprise. Like, as I was telling you before, my daughter has been, you know, practicing her bike every day on her training wheels. And there are these like modern, crazy new training wheels that you like slowly lift up. So they kind of need them less and less. And we were biking the other day and my husband's like, there's one more setting. And we were like, great. So we put them on this like precariously high setting, and she was biking and then they just fell off. And like, clearly it wasn't really a setting, you know, like he just wasn't ready to. And they just fell off and she started riding. She was so excited. And it just, you know, for a moment, I was just filled with this total joy and glee. And also that moment of like, oh my God, is college next? You know, like where are we? But of like, oh, something miraculous can still happen. And so that's been feeding me. And the way that people are going out of their way to take care of each other right now. The number of old friends that have reached out to me, or I've reached out to cousins that I usually like, there's been this coming together that, you know, I find very empowering, and I think is a sign of, you know, we all get so busy and we all have all these devices and all these meetings, and that like underneath that all there is this deeper core and this, you know, sense that just being in touch with each other matters. And I think that's what theater is at the end of the day too, is that kind of connective tissue of like, oh my God, this is what happened to me today, you know. And I think that something I love about MRT, and it feels like you're bringing this too, is that hopefulness is part of why we tell stories. And that I get turned off very quickly by theater that leaves you more dark than when you started. And not that everything has to be super cheerful or sugary, but like I think there's something about just the act of telling a story that is hopeful, like inherently. And so I'm excited that you're helping us do that more here now too.
Lila Rose, thank you. I always like at the end of these conversations, it's amazing. Like I just feel like selfishly for me, it's such a like gorgeous window into the voices that are going to help us relaunch our lives when we come out of this. Yeah, so I can't wait to like when we can gather, and I can't wait to have your work back at MRT. And thanks for doing this.
You're welcome. Take care, everybody.